High School DxD and Chainsaw Man are two very different series. One series is a hyper-violent, brutal, and gory masterpiece that delves into some really horrifying concepts, and is also just really cool. While High School DxD is more so just a lighthearted harem battle comedy, ecchi kinda shonen series about a boy with a dragon inside of him that really likes breasts, and it isn't super deep. There are, however, three things these series have in common, one of which being that the series are both centered around devils. Although their ideas of devils are different, Chainsaw Man goes for the approach of having fear-based monsters, while DxD kind of has biblically inspired devils, but they also kind of act just like humans and look just like humans. So they're very different kinds of devils, if that makes sense. Second is fan service. Both series have fan service, but they both handle it in very different ways, which plays into the main point of this video and relates to the last thing these series have in common, that being perverted or lust-driven main characters. Denji and Issei are both driven by their lust. Because of this, you can find many people online who have compared the two main characters. But while Denji is loved and praised as a character for the most part, Issei is not. Issei is hated by thousands. But why is that? Perversion? So why isn't Denji hated? Maybe it's that Issei is a shallow character with little to no development, but Issei is a three-dimensional character who progresses and develops over time. He goes through his own traumas and overcomes them to become stronger. Although to be fair, Denji is just straight up a better character, but Issei is a decent character in his own right. So even though they're both perverts, but are both fleshed out characters, then why does Issei get so much hate while Denji is loved? Now, some of you may already be able to tell the issue right off the bat, but to some viewers who aren't as media literate, it may be harder to see, and that's okay. But here's the key to Denji's popularity and Issei's notoriety: presentation and reason. How does this correlate to their public perception? I'll show you. My name is Cloudy Kai, and this is an analysis on why Denji is loved and Issei is hated. Roll the intro. So I wanted to speak about the presentation first. While Issei and Denji are both lust-driven characters, their stories present their perversion differently. Issei in High School DxD being a pervert is almost always treated as a joke, and it's a part of the comic relief and played for gags, with it being the main gag of the show. And there's plenty of anime characters like this, and there's a lot of shows that use like perverted characters in like gags and stuff. The only problem is nowadays, the whole pervert gag really isn't that funny, at least to the Western audience. Because now we kind of just think that shit's kind of weird. Although don't get me wrong, there is still an audience that does find us humor kind of funny, which is usually the perverts themselves, the people that watch anime specifically for fan service. The same people that will call you slurs or a hood weeb because you don't like this really obscure fan service anime from 2005. About these chicks that look like they're 13, but they're actually 2,000 years old. Those type of people. But with a lot of other characters, they're usually not the main characters, they're usually side characters, and their gag's not the main gag, so you're not exposed to their perversion as much. Issei is the main character, and perversion is his main gag, so it is shoved in your face time and time and again that this guy is a pervert and he loves him some titties. And I think this constant exposure to his perversion makes him unlikable in a lot of people's eyes, which I definitely understand, because a lot of the times, especially in anime, they overdo it with the gags, to which I can see why people wouldn't like him because of it. So boom, we know why Issei's perversions look down on him, why people don't like him because of it. But how come with Denji being lust-driven and a lot of his motivations being titties, how come Denji is viewed more highly than Issei is? Well, I'll tell you, because his whole perversion and him being driven by lust is not a gag. Fujimoto never uses Denji's perversion to get a chuckle out of the viewer, or rarely does so. It's always used to serve a greater purpose to the story. The scene between Denji and Power and later Makima and Denji was used to show how Denji would never be happy with his goal. Anytime he'd achieve something, he wouldn't feel what he expected to. He would start chasing the next thing. Through his simple perversion, we see how naive and easily manipulated he is. And this is where I want to bring up this point. Despite, Issei being a pervert, being shoved in your face multiple times, a lot of his powers and how he powers up comes from his perversion. If you took away Issei's perversion, it really wouldn't affect his character arcs at all. So with Denji, let's say you take away Denji's perversion and hypersexuality, his degenerate side. That's not even fucking Denji, that's just some random dude you got off the street. Denji's hypersexuality is vitally important to understanding his character as a whole. But with Issei, his character growth is really just him dealing with his insecurities and his past traumas and how he learns to grow despite those and become a better person and a better leader. His perversion literally has nothing to do with that. Now obviously, if Issei wasn't perverted, a lot of his abilities would change. He wouldn't be able to power up for perversion, he wouldn't have dress break, and he wouldn't have Bubulingle. I am not saying to get rid of Issei's perverted side. I'm saying that similar to Denji, it should be more interlinked with his character arcs and how he develops, instead of just being an annoying gag that a lot of people don't like. So I'm saying that in this case, he could be more like Denji in this way, and I actually think the Rainier arc does show something akin to this. We see how Rainier manipulates Issei's perversion and desire to get what she wants. We see how he plays right into her trap, resulting in his death in the first episode. This is similar to how someone like Makima manipulates Denji's desires, lust, and yearning for intimacy to achieve her own goals. But beyond this first arc, we don't really get anything like this. We don't see how Issei's perversion and lust can be his undoing, how it can make him naive, gullible. We don't see how it plays into that. To be honest, this really shows actually how good the Rainier arc was for what it did lack in flashy action. It set up a lot of interesting stuff, especially with exploring the weaknesses of Issei's perversion. While the Rainier arc had a lot of good setups that actually led into future arcs, it also had a lot of really good setups that never became anything else, but they're really good setups, and honestly, if they kind of went with some of the stuff that they had in this arc and kept it pushing into further arcs, I think DxD might be in a better spot. Or maybe not, I don't know, but I just wanted to glaze the Rainier arc for a little bit because I think the Rainier arc is one of the best written arcs in DxD. It might be like in the top 5 best written arcs in High School DxD. I think I don't know if I'd call it underrated, but I really like the arc. Y'all should check it. It's the first arc. If you watch DxD, unless you're like some weirdo who skips like the first seasons of anime, it's going to be the first arc you see, and I think it's one of the best arcs in DxD. So, I think y'all kind of get the gist of what I meant by presentation now. Now I want to get to the second main point of this video, reason. What I mean by this is the reason why they're perverted, why they're lust-driven, why they're hypersexual. Starting with Issei. He doesn't really have one, he's just a pervert because he is. There's no depth to it. There's no reason for why he is the way he is. He just always really liked boobs. But Denji is entirely different. At the beginning of Chainsaw Man, Denji really wasn't hypersexual at all, or a degenerate. He expresses wanting to go on a date with a girl in chapter 1, but this more so seemed like an innocent dream, unlike the ones that are still naive but more intimate later on. So why is Denji hypersexual and, as some may put it, perverted? It is because of one woman, Makima. Makima manipulated Denji into being hypersexual. It's only right after she takes him in that he becomes more lust-driven. By leading him on and giving him the affection that he never had, she creates this part of Denji. She groomed him into being what he is today so she could easily break him later on. And Denji still hasn't recovered from Makima's damage to him. She forever changed his outlook on life and his idea of intimacy. It's honestly disgusting and shows how manipulative and cruel Makima was. I could probably make a whole video on how Makima still affects Denji in part 2 even after her death. I'm not saying that Issei should have done exactly what Fujimoto did with Denji, because these are two completely different series. Doing the same thing, that would just be boring. They should be different in a lot of ways, actually. Not even some, a lot of ways. They should be completely different characters. And I don't want Issei to be a carbon copy of Denji. But I think giving Issei a reason for why he's a pervert, for why he is the way he is, something a little bit more serious, could kind of let audiences like emphasize with him more, and it kind of humanizes his character, similar to how Denji is humanized by this. If we had like a reason, like a little backstory for why he's the way he is, something that's not like some goofy ass shit, then it would humanize his character and make audiences relate to him more. And this video is not meant to be this Denji glazing video where I'm just putting down High School DxD and saying that Chainsaw Man's the best manga ever, DxD sucks. I am simply trying to give suggestions on what I think would improve Issei's character, because I think that Issei is a decent character in his own right, especially for a harem series, for a harem main character. I think he is actually written decently well, and I'm not trying to put him down. I'm just trying to give my suggestions on how his writing could be improved by looking at a similar kind of character, if that makes sense. Now, let me get into the conclusion that I've been trying to build up to. The reason why Denji is loved and Issei is hated is because Denji's perversion serves more of a purpose for his character in a way that makes his character more nuanced, and he has a reasoning for his hypersexuality that humanizes it. Issei is really just a pervert that doesn't have a reason for being a pervert, and it doesn't meaningfully affect his character. This causes the viewer to not really be able to emphasize or relate to him as much. And I think it's also partly that Denji isn't really like your textbook anime pervert. He's hypersexual for sure, but people throw around the word a lot on like Twitter especially, that he's like a pervert that's similar to like Jiraiya, Mineta, or Master Roshi, but he's not. Let's take Issei. Issei is just straight up horny. He peeks in the locker room sometimes, does some weird shit sometimes. I'm gonna even say dress break is a really weird ability that's really weird and plays into some really weird fantasies. Denji is very different. He's simply a confused hypersexual teenager who mistakes his actual desire for intimacy for simply just lust. Because of how naive Denji is, and because he doesn't understand himself, it unfortunately makes him a target of being groomed, abuse, manipulation by a lot of people in his life, mainly Makima, and also Yoru, but also plenty of other people too. It's really sad and heartbreaking to see how all of this goes down in the manga, and like I said, it also humanizes him, makes people relate with him more, makes people emphasize him with him more, and that's sort of something that Issei doesn't have. You can emphasize with Issei when it comes to, how he's manipulated by Renair, his trauma, but his perversion, you can't emphasize with that, because his perverted moments are just weird. They're just like, boobies, I want to touch boobies, and that's kind of hard to emphasize with, because a lot of people think it's just weird. Remember the thumbnail you saw before clicking on this video? That's kind of what it comes down to. On Issei's side, you have where it says weird in the red text. While Issei is a good character, his perversion is simply just used for gags, and they're really weird gags a lot of the times, and that's kind of off-putting for a lot of people and makes people not like his character. Denji, like the green text says, is more relatable. A lot of people have gone through a lot of the same stuff that Denji has had. They've been groomed, manipulated, abused. They've been confused. A lot of people do not understand their own selves. So Denji hits harder for a lot of people, and like I said, is more relatable. And I think that's really what it comes down to. Denji is a more humanized and more relatable character than Issei, who is a very exaggerated character that's a lot harder to emphasize with. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say for this video. If you like this video, make sure to click the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, maybe even share with a friend. But I'ma head out. Hopefully the next upload comes sooner than this one did, because I know y'all just had to wait 2 months for this upload. I'm sorry. A whole lot of shit went wrong in the background. I had to remake the entire video, but I hope y'all enjoy this one, and I'll see you next upload. Peace.
ハッティラルな歌歌い方なんだとやめてそろらりらいろろろはいおものいた I love you gonna stay here なねやなななでててやり届く未来 beautiful star 届く未来 beautiful star 届く未来 beautiful star だなにないやいで